and welcome to Do the Right Thing, your weekly writing prompt podcast. I'm Alexandra.
And I'm Jarvis.
Jarvis and I were aspiring writers with one simple, common problem. We never actually took the time to sit down and write.
Exactly. So to solve this issue, we are issuing a challenge. Each week you sit down and write a complete short story using 3 or 4 randomly generated words.
And then we come on the podcast, we read a story, we talk about what we learned in reading it, and then we talk about the rest of stories sent in by you wonderful listeners.
Exactamundo. We're simply here to help you do the right thing.
A doof media production. You may notice a little bit of a difference in the sounds you're hearing. Some little difference.
And that is because my mic has finally broke.
It died an ignoble death
very not noble.
Of USB not recognized.
Actually, it was
truly tragic.
Horrendous death that I am deciding to wipe my memory and everyone else's memory of its memory. But this has been a thing that's been a long time coming. I've been talking about getting a new mic for about a month now, but I didn't want to spend the money. And also, I held on to the belief that I can salvage it somehow. But when I needed it most, it died. So yeah, I'm in the market for a brand new mic.
If anyone has one on their Craigslist, you can email us, Do the Right Thing cast, and we'll give you Patreon rewards for it. We'll give you a personalized thank you message.
Yes.
I can do some ASMR. I've been meaning to do some ASMR. So if you want some custom ASMR, you can email me at alexandra@doofmedia.com. And I will make a custom ASMR for you.
Actually, speaking of, do you think I could buy one of those like ear mics that the ASMRs use and use that for the podcast?
I don't know what you mean.
Have you never seen those like ear mics? Literally,
an ear mic
is a mic. And I think it might be like a attachment or something, but it literally has 2 human-like ears that, like, if you rub them, it makes the sound as if you're rubbing someone's ear.
Okay.
It's very, very weird. So maybe I could get one of those and then provide you with a in-depth experience of me being there, whispering into your ears.
Giving you some good writer advice, giving you some encouragement, just a general lovely doof treatment. I think is a great plan.
So yeah, we say all that to say, if I sound extra worse today, it is because of the mic and not because I'm covered in phlegm.
Why are you covered in phlegm?
Because my body does this weird thing to where I'm really hot when I sleep, so I need some sort of fan on me. But if there's some sort of fan on me, my body says, "Oh, we need to build up as much mucus in your nose so you don't get sick." So all throughout the night, I was sneezing because there was too much phlegm for my body to possibly hold. So yeah.
That's wonderful. This is the true Do the Right Thing experience. Everyone's got Omicron right now too, so that's the yeah. Do you think they intentionally chose like a Transformer kind of name?
Honestly,
to spook people? I mean, not spook, to make people more appropriately
so weird because
concerned.
We just had plain old coronavirus, and then we had Delta, and then we had Lambda, but then someone was like, you know what, people aren't taking this seriously. What is that planet-sized transformer that people are like really scared of? Let's do that. And now we have Omicron. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly that was the plan.
If you didn't know.
That's definitely behind WHO headquarters.
That's if you didn't know, Unicron is the twin soul to the first prime, or I guess the prime spirit, and basically
I thought it's like the opposite of Cybertron.
Well, yeah,
it's Unicron and Cybertron.
Cybertron is prime, like it's the prime spirit, and basically when the godhead of the Transformer universe created Unicron. He was like, well, you know what? He's pretty cool, but he's kind of evil. let me make a second version from him that's all of the good in the world. And then they
Mm-hmm.
were fighting to where basically Prime uh, pushed their souls, both him and
Mm-hmm.
Unicron's soul, into a different dimension, and then shifted them back so that
Mm-hmm.
most of their power is stuck in that other dimension. But over time,
Mm-hmm.
Unicron found out a way to turn his body into a transformer. Yeah,
Okay.
so that's your
That's
little that's your
beautiful.
little
We should
transformer
just be a
lore.
Transformers podcast. That's what we should do,
Honestly, there
actually.
was so much lore, so much
Uh-huh.
useless Transformers lore that I know that I would love to talk about.
Look, I've talked about this before, but it was a while ago, so I think most of the current listeners have not heard it. That I used to have one of those big like comic compendiums where it's like the entire
Of
series of something.
Transformers.
It's like a whole like thick book. Yeah, I don't know what run it was. I just remember two sections that freaked me out. Okay, and they both involved like biological aliens with the
Huh?
Transformers. One was I think Cybertron, the planet was having like some sort of apocalypse and everyone was having to
Mm-hmm.
leave. And like some like Decepticons and Autobots, like you separately saw them like walk down into the like tunnels underneath Cybertron that had like been loosened up by like a essentially an earthquake. And then a bunch of like demons poured
Yes.
out. And they were called demons and they like tore through the Transformers like they were nothing, like with like these claws that just like rent through it, like just made them bleed basically.
Ouch.
And that was really freaky because they were like eating them too. They were eating the Transformers like cannibalistically,
Really?
like it was
And like,
like chewing on an
were they
arm, like
also
a
like
severed arm.
robot demons?
No, no, they were wet biological
Oh wow! So
demons.
just straight up demons.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's really weird. And then the second thing, also part of that series, I'm pretty sure, that some Decepticons get on this alien planet, and the aliens are just like a bunch of like weird like fleshy humanoids. Like they're very pink and
Mm.
wrinkly, and just looked extremely pathetic. And they just slaughter them, as in like cleaving through bodies with intestines going everywhere. It was just a lot for a Transformers book that I did not expect at all. Like these poor and like I just remember one panel of like an alien running, clearly screaming, terrified, with his eyes like wide open, and like basically like running towards the camera with its like arms stretched out, like trying to get someone to save them, basically. And that one also being like totally like cut in half or
Oh,
something
that's
horrible.
gruesome.
Um, yeah, I did not. I didn't expect
Yeah.
it in
Well, granted,
Transformers.
because I know like in the Transformers extended universe, they focus a lot more on like the casualties of like war, and just like how
Mm-hmm.
this like people are actually dying. Which I kind of hate how like that sort of like darker tone hasn't really crossed over into any like mainline movie. But I also understand why, because you can't really sell toys for an R-rated movie.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like Megan Fox, this whole role in the first movie was enough to like. I don't know. You could push the boundaries a
What do you
bit.
mean? She
Apparently,
was
if you're Michael Bay. Yeah, you're right. That
yeah.
was totally PG and normal and
Do
not like
you? I mean, granted,
so
I mean
fucking
like,
weird.
hey,
Michael Bay.
13 year
Ugh.
olds are sweaty too, same as how everyone in all of those movies had a thin sheen of sweat all over them.
That is true. I will say, in the second movie, when there's like the
Yeah.
sexy robot that like shoves like a prehensile robot tongue down what was his name?
Sam
Sam
Witwicky.
Wiki or whatever? Wiki, sorry. Down his throat.
Oh
Definitely,
yeah.
it was something. It was
Hmm.
definitely
And I mean, for
it
like
was
me
something.
watching that, I was really thinking about that scene for quite some time, but I don't know
Definitely
why.
had a robo fetish awakening.
Yeah, just like, hey, you know what, Sam, why did you run?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was clearly just as a Decepticon. I mean, Decepticons are like it's like a succubus transformer. It's just
Yeah,
trying to show you a good time.
succubus transformer. Ooh, but also that raises a like another question in our
Mm-hmm.
transformer hour.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, this is going to be a
do
whole hour.
a
I
whole
hope you
podcast, yeah.
listeners are ready for it. We'll jump into the actual episode in just a second.
Yeah.
What's your addition?
Yeah, so do Transformers reproduce traditionally? Because like okay,
No.
if
Well.
I'm looking at the second movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Apparently they are born from like eggs, right? But like do they have any like real sexuality and like do they...
Sometimes I feel like they might just take it from humans.
True,
Like
yeah.
they go into human forms because like half the time they do end up saying some weird sexual stuff, especially if there's a female robot, which is really just when you that says a lot about just the writers in general, doesn't it? As soon as there's a female robot, suddenly they get all horny,
Yeah,
weird. I don't
suddenly,
know.
yeah.
But there was that like the motorcycle transformer in like the second or third
Yeah.
or whatever, and definitely like she was sexualized because she was just a
Well, yeah,
female robot. I
she
don't
was
know
a
what's up
white
with
and
that.
pink female robot who walked like she was on a runway constantly. Um, which hey,
Yeah,
leave it to Michael Bay to sexualize a female transformer even more than he does to semi to like what 20-year-old Megan
jeez.
Fox, right?
Yeah. Although it is interesting. I mean, they're not born with a gender, so they do
Yeah,
choose their
they
gender
can choose.
essentially, which
Yeah.
is kind of neat.
Hmm.
Um, so all Transformers are trans. That's canon.
But it does make you wonder why the vast majority of the Transformers choose male, you
Mm,
know?
I would say it's because that's how you gain power. It's inside the masculine gender, basically. A lot of it's locked in that.
Do Transformers have testosterone?
That yes, you know what? Yes, I would say that. Yes, yep, they definitely act like it. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's probably like cyberosterone or something.
Cyberosterone. Yeah, they would probably be like, you've got some kind of you're running on diesel or something.
Diesel?
I
That's
don't know, man. Okay, let's just do the
yeah.
podcast.
Well, yeah. If you like Diesel, we have a podcast called "Do the Right Thing," where
That's such a perfect, excellent
yes,
transition. I've never seen something
where
better.
we talk about
Um,
stories and we read one of them live and we talk about it for an extended period of time. So thank you so much to our writers for this week. But the story we will be talking about
mhm,
or reading and then talking about is going to be by Mattsaidwords with The Enabler.
mhm. Speaking of enabling, I want just Transformers fanfic
Yes.
next week. So that is my formal request. If I don't see that, I will
Uh-huh.
be disappointed in everyone who submits
Yeah.
a
Also,
story.
also
So,
too.
including the ones that actually do send in a Transformers story because you didn't
Mhm.
get everyone else to.
Also,
So it's all or nothing.
I have two caveats with that. Right. One, I
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
want to see Jazz in some of these. Um, and I
Oh, of
want you
course.
to try your best to not make Jazz just the black stereotype. One.
What are you talking about? Why would a transformer named Jazz be a black
I don't
stereotype?
know.
I
I don't
don't
know.
I
I
don't know
don't
what you're
know.
talking
But
about.
try to not make him only speak in slang and like those like lines that they give to every black guy in a like lot of movies where he's like loud. He says, "Oh hell yeah," like don't please don't do that. And two, if you do have humans in your Transformer story, try to make them not useless, even though I know it's really hard, but try to make them
Mm.
not useless.
Well, you remember watching the
Yeah,
Transformers
and
the
they were
movie from
useless.
1986, and that one, Well, no, because they put them
You're
in
right.
robot suits. They
You're
put him.
right.
He became a transformer. The kid
Yeah.
became a transformer. He
And then he
said
put on his robot suit. Yeah.
transform, and he transformed into a little car. He turned into a little car.
This is a really small tangent. The only human character in any Transformers anything was from this like TV series that I had. I don't know what the name of it is, but basically it was this girl who was like hanging out with the like Transformers, and like she would actually like hack stuff and a help, right? But the thing
Mm-hmm.
was, she was a
Mm-hmm.
Transformer the whole time. She just didn't know it. Yeah,
What? Well, that's a little
yeah, it was pretty
disappointing, but also
cool.
cool. I want to be a transformer. Actually, I am a transformer. I'm transforming using
Wow.
estrogen. All right, I'm gonna read
Yes,
Mattsaidwords'
please do.
amazing story right now. So this is The Enabler by Mattsaidwords. I spent 2 years living in a duplex with one of my coworkers back in my 20s. We were young and stupid, to be sure, and we made sure to make the most of those years, taking in junk food and drugs like the college students we were. Okay, the college student I was. Stephen was decidedly not a student, but certainly earned an honorary position among those of us enlisted in academia's army. Thinking back, I wonder if it's Stephen I want to tell you about. Him, of the endless conquests and late night bull sessions. He was the kind of friend you sometimes had trouble remembering why you were friends with. He was a good enough person, I suppose. He didn't make trouble for himself, or me, for that matter, but he had a way of bringing out the extremes in people. One night, Stephen and I hosted a small party at our little duplex. Luckily, our next door neighbor was a sweet old lady named Miss B, who was one too loud noise away from being completely deaf, thank God. She would have undoubtedly called the cops on us had she been able to hear the nonsense that went on next to her. Personally, I think she knew what was going on, and knew, like we knew, that we were entitled to a bit of hell raising. She would cast knowing smiles and little grins that made you wonder. But that was as far as it ever went. Wonder. Anyway, we had a party with a dozen people or so. I knew most of them, but there were inevitably two girls I had never met. Anyone who knew Stephen knew they were the latest in a long line of conquests. You might be thinking two girls for one guy seems a little skeezy, and you'd be right. Stephen was many things: a skis, an alpha, a dog. Next to me, Stephen commanded the room, and I was so much wallpaper. I didn't mind. If anything, I preferred it that way. Believe it or not, we made a great team. Stephen kept everyone, and I do mean everyone, entertained. Karaoke, drinking games, party favors, etc., to quote the king. Everyone knew that if you were at a Stephen party, you were going to have a memorable time. With me running defense for him, the parties always seemed to end up a success. No significant spills, no vomit on the carpet, and no tears. The latter was my main focus, since that was where Stephen's parties could go so very wrong. This particular party reached its peak during a game of King's Cup. If you've played drinking games, you know they're pretty much all the same. Draw a card, and let's say you get a 9 of clubs. Now you have to pick a word and then go around the table while everyone tries to rhyme with that word. The first person who can't come up with a rhyme has to drink. During the game, I noticed one of Stephen's invitees, one of the girls he invited to bang, to be blunt, speaking with one of my classmates, named Colt. A rare breed of a young man. He was on the shorter side, but his confidence and jawline made him a threat. Not to me. I thought he was the bee's knees, and had honestly tried to wrangle him into living in a duplex with me, rather than Stephen, but circumstances being what they were, I had to settle, so to speak. I'm sure that says something about me, but I wouldn't know what. I was torn. Do I try to break up the conversation and get Colt and the girl into the game? Or do I leave them alone to let what might be become? Stephen was enthralled and getting a bit handsy at this point, so I excused myself and went over to chat up the two in the kitchen. Steven came up with me, unfortunately, and immediately tried to pull his girl away from Colt. Hey girl, you want to get on this game with us? We're just about to start a new round. Oh, I'm okay. I'll sit this one out, though. Thanks, though. She graced him and the rest of us with a nuclear smile that must have earned her an invitation in the first place. She was lovely, with her shock of long red hair laying against her lean neck. Ah, come on. It's just a game. Come play around with us. Steven slipped a hand around her back and not so subtly put his hand along the swell of her breast. She sunk in deep on herself to move away from that touch. Hey, Steven, I think it's your turn. I pointed to the dwindling pile of cards on the table and those still gathered around it, looking at us. I didn't know it then, but I just committed a miracle. Steven went back and sat next to the other girl he'd invited along and drew an ace. In this game, that meant everyone drinks until the person who drew the ace stops drinking. Of course, no one really polices that, but everyone was really feeling the spirit of the game, and drinks were long and laid heavy in everyone's belly, subduing them in a red-cheeked, jovial stupor. Thanks. I turned, and the woman who'd been invited by Steven, was looking at me. Something you should know, I was no good with girls. I was a pilot fish to the shark named Steven, and all I could come up with in the way of a response was, sure, he can be a bit much sometimes, especially when he's drinking. Colt laughed at this and slapped me on the back. You're a good friend to say so. I can think of a few other things I'd like to say about Steven. Colt tipped his beer and sipped it. Monstrous, selfish, and an entitled, dangerous prick. Oh, stop it. You would be curled up on the floor in a puddle had you drank half of what he'd had tonight. She laughed. I learned then that her name was Hannah. I'd always liked that name. I think because it's a palindrome. Really, I think I liked it from the moment I knew it was hers, but time is tricky. What came first, Hannah or the palindrome? I just didn't want to make you feel like you have to hang out with that. I pointed to where Steven was drinking after a short mini-game of Never Have I Ever. Apparently Steven had, in fact, had a threesome involving another guy. Surprising, but not exactly shocking either. Hannah laughed and smiled. God, what could men... No, strike that. We were no men. What could us boys do against such a spell? I could see Colt was enamored with Hannah, and, like I mentioned, I thought Colt was the cat's ass. I made my farewells and took up my place in the game again, confident that Steven had forgotten about the duo in the kitchen. The night went on, and the party dwindled as parties do. People departed in pairs and threes, usually in the same company they came. The other girl Steven invited, I cannot remember her name, made a casual French exit at some point, but luckily not before Colt and Hannah could make good on their own escape. Someone apparently left the back door and gate open at some point, allowing them to go without fanfare. Wink, wink. Colt and Hannah went on to become an item. I would spot them in the student union building eating lunch together and occasionally holding hands on their way to the library. It was adorable going on disgusting, and everyone thought they were perfect for each other. And a few months later, Colt took a knee before Hannah and proposed with a small diamond ring. She said yes. Steven was many things to me, but I think most of all, he was a means to a miracle. My miracle. Their miracle. At a Steven party, you knew you would have a memorable time. For Colt and Hannah, that memory will last for the rest of their lives. Mine too. And despite the falling out Steven and I had a few months later, I can't resent him. He encouraged love without even knowing what it was. I don't know that he knew about love. Not like Colt and Hannah's. But regardless, he enabled it. And that was enough.
Well, all right. That is a fantastic story that I really liked. On the prose level, I really do love this tone, this sort of the way that the story is being told is very fly on the wall, Great Gatsby esque, to where we do get to not only understand this character of Stephen, but through how colored the prose are by this main character, we get to really understand. We get to understand this main character also, and I love how throughout it, I was sort of expecting something to go horribly wrong, but it ended up in a very cute and sweet place at the end. And I never felt that I was cheated out of that ending because I enjoyed this ending far more than anything that I was expecting. So overall, like this story is really great, really controlled. And yeah, while I was reading it, I was thinking about my own Stephen within my own life. So really great job.
Oh, you have a like a particular person that you would label in the same way?
Yeah, I do.
Huh. I don't know who that would be.
Well, I can tell you
Yeah,
about it
after
off
that makes
podcast.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I think this story is a great example of how like even really mundane things can really make for a lovely story. There's no like necessary
Hmm.
like fantasy elements in here. There's not even like I don't know. I feel like so many stories that are realistic fiction just involve so much violence, Um,
Yeah.
and this is even more mild than that, right? No, there's not a death here. There's just a small moment that ended up being important in kind of showing how um like the small moments that are like maybe are unpleasant and things are still like integral in those other happy moments happening. Um so yeah, I quite like that aspect. I like how our character here is just sort of a
A passive viewer.
just there for the moment, basically. Yeah, in some other people's stories, not just in Colt and Hannah's story, but also sort of passing through Steven's story too. Um, yeah, I thought that was really really nice.
Yeah, definitely. And this story has a really strong sense of place, even though like I don't think the duplex was ever described, but based off of the people that live there and this sort of party scene, I can get a really nice scope of what this place really does look like because the prose itself are so colored by the characters that populate this story, was I think was a really accomplished task there. Um, and yeah.
I like how the like the what ended up becoming the main characters sort of just like
Hmm.
slip in near the end. Like Hannah is not named until halfway through, and then Colt is sort of just yeah, he's the main character's friend. I like the sort of like fake out that we're having here of it seems like it's going to be about the main
Yeah.
character and Hannah getting together. It seems like that the main character did have some sort of like little crush at the very least on Hannah. I mean all that stuff about her lovely name and things. So I think that was that was an interesting little
Yeah, very much so.
misdirection.
And I think this whole story is kind of like a direction. I mean, Steven is being built up as a nice guy, but you know that kind of guy that you don't know why y'all are friends, which I completely understand. And like just based off of him being called a dog, a alpha, a sleaze, you would think that there would be a moment within this story where we see that, very very face value. Which yeah, there yeah again.
I mean, there
Because
is
like
a
when
little
he was
bit,
trying to
but
slide in
it's not that
between
bad.
Colt and I think Grace, yeah, there was that moment where I was like, oh no, here comes Steven. But I do really like how the main character sort of functions to like keep Steven on track, which I think was perfectly
Hmm.
encapsulated in that one paragraph where it was talking about how Steven has a way of like making nights memorable for people, but that the main character was playing defense, making sure that people aren't vomiting on the floor or getting too drunk, or that Steven doesn't just go and doesn't just create chaos in the party. So I really like this idea that was prevalent in
Hmm.
the story of this sort of like this sort of like balancing act that the main character has to do to keep Steven and all of the people on track.
Yeah, there seems to be a theme here, obviously with the title about enabling.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have sort of the positive connotations of that concept of enabling something good to happen, I suppose.
Yeah.
Which is interesting though, because it's like it also, that being the title does imply that the main character is enabling Stephen, which I think they maybe are, at least a little
A
bit.
little bit, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm glad it doesn't really turn out bad within this one. Um, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's an interesting concept to try to do a twist around.
Yeah. And also like towards the end where the persona basically says how like um he would stop being friends with Steven after a while. I think that, that was a really nice moment to sort of show the future past this a moment while not taking focus away from the story of Colt and Grace, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Um, and yeah, it's just these like broad brushstrokes of their own story, sort of like having that passing comment, basically, because we don't have to know all the details. I mean, we can fill them out, right? We can fill out all the standard romance stuff, and that carries across all the same sort of meaning.
Hmm.
Because that's a trope too, right? Not a bad one. Tropes are just they're story tools,
Hmm.
basically, building
Yeah.
blocks. Um, yeah.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So yeah, I mean, overall, solid story. I love how grounded it is because I know, like, in a lot of stories, as you were saying, stories that try to be realistic always have some sort of like great moment, like like a murder or something more serious. But this, like as you said, does deal within the mundane, but sort of shows us the tiny beauties and the small miracles that can happen in everyday life. So overall, really great job to Mattsaidwords.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Who is the? Or I guess let's get into the rest of the listeners submitted
Yes,
story
yes.
section.
So, the first story we are going to be talking about this week is by No Goodbye with Hero of the Story.
So this is also a lovely story, also sort of about a one character talking about another, and we have this storyteller talking about this hero of the past, this Lady Silver who beheaded this tyrant god, um, and eventually passed away, giving herself up in that last sacrifice that what her story called for was giving her life, and telling just a little bit more about her as a person. That her name was Elmira, and that she was a painter or had a dream of being a painter, and that she had a romance with a lady Cora, um, and basically just sort of reminiscing on this idea of the stories that we tell about people and how that's the way that we remember them and care about them. And though things are like lost to time, the fact that we try our best to remember them is the important part.
Yeah, definitely. Um, I really do enjoy how this story is sort of covering such a wide breadth of time, but it really does try and focus on the emotional crux, which is this, this like main character. And I do like how it sort of spells out how history can get things wrong, but it doesn't really question if that is a good thing or a bad thing about how people are forgetting the person, but they remember the symbol. So yeah, the story was dealing with a lot of great concepts and ideas throughout, and I think it was accomplished through the way that the story was being told, as in like a third person talking about someone else. So really great job.
Hmm. Yeah, I love stories about stories. I've written several very meandering pieces about that sort of thing, and I think it's very important to explore
Yeah,
that because that's how
stories
we
about
view the
stories,
world. It's
definitely.
just in stories.
Well, all right. Up next is by Walker by Faith with The Crutch 4.
Hmm. So here we have another character connected to the alcoholic Paul, who ended up dying after relapsing. And this was with his mother, I think, Audra. And she's waking up in the middle of the night, being hit by a prank, basically, with someone bringing a spotlight out to her window just to startle her in the middle of the night. So Audra apparently has been a victim of a long campaign of vicious pranks by the, I think, family members of the girl that Paul killed in the crash, because she's been involved in all the legal proceedings, basically doing the stuff for Paul because he is too messed up to be able to do it himself, or he was anyway. And here at the end here, it takes a turn for the darker, because on the spotlight that they left, there's a note saying you'll be joining Holly and Paul soon, implying that they want to, murder her for her involvement in helping Paul with the legal proceedings.
Cool, yeah. As you can probably tell, the audio is different. It is because my secondary way of recording audio has also broken, so that's great. But I will make sure to fix it all in post. So sorry about all of these audio issues, but next week we should be back up and running with crisp, non-clippy audio. So this story is definitely a really great next step for this series. I do love how in the beginning we start with a completely different character and doing link to Paul, and now we're going to Paul's mother, I think. I really like how this story is unfolding, and I love this sort of new tension, these new pressures that are present in this latest issue. So I think wherever this story goes from here is a really great trajectory, especially since we've sort of switched over so many times. But I love how I'm not confused whatsoever, and how I know the whole story of Paul, and now we're just jumping to the next layer in this sort of layered cake story. I'm really loving it. I'm loving how the prose are consistent throughout, and it's really telling this really great story that makes sure to stay close to the main character's heart as all of these other things are unfolding.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like if we're going to go on to further perspectives, I'm very interested in seeing the perspectives of the people harassing this poor woman who just had a son that was an alcoholic, basically. Sort of what this sort of situation is. But I do very much like how sort of grounded we are in Audra's perspective, and how like nervous she is and sort of exhausted she is by all of this. Now that Paul is gone too, like it's just kind of terrible. That she's still reeling from her son's actions even after he's gone.
Yeah, definitely. So again, I'm looking forward to where this story is going to end up going. But thank you again to Walker by Faith for submitting us another great issue. And our last story for this week is by a new writer named Educated Fierce 1978 with a untitled story.
Thanks so much for joining us, Educated Fierce 1978. Probably shortened that to Educated Fierce. So this story is with our main character, who I don't know if we have named, but she is out hunting, and she's recently suffered from like an injury, but she's out hunting birds, and sort of remembers a little bit of her father, I think, who has passed sometime in the past. And she encounters a big buck that she could actually be very much injured by, and in her shotgun is one for birds. It wouldn't be able to do anything. And she just has this sort of little encounter with it as they both like size each other up before finally she she's able to scare it off. And somehow she just gets a feeling that it's her father that might have been in that deer. And by some miracle afterwards, her arm is no longer hurting. And so we sort of get the sense that maybe these things are connected, or maybe it's just a interesting coincidence. And I guess the character is worth pondering that.
Yeah, definitely. So, again, thank you for submitting your first piece, and this is a really great story for our first submission. I like a lot of the imagery happening here, and I love the bits about the physiology of this main character, their arm hurting, and the sort of muses on possible spirituality throughout. So I think that this story is definitely working with a lot of good pieces. And yeah, overall, I really do enjoy it. If you were to continue on this story, the only thing that I would say is definitely like grounding it within a more grounded moment, possibly. But overall, it's really great, and I'm so excited for you to be writing with us.
Yeah, actually, that's a good example about putting in one moment. Like I'm imagining if all of the story was just that moment with
Yeah.
the buck, right? Just like that moment of like silence and tension, and just having like a paragraph of just setting that up before we get to that image, because those moments can really like stretch on forever, right? And how she's like connecting that to her father, what advice he might have given in the past, and maybe she like notices, I don't know, something in its eye that reminds her of him, or otherwise just like connects it to that. And I do like that connection with the arm. I felt like connecting those things together would have been good, or I don't know, just an example of like maybe the pain in her arm had just mysteriously started after her father passed, and because that's a thing, people get
Mm-hmm.
physical pains
Yeah.
from emotional pains, right? And then maybe there's some sort of thing about her letting him go with this deer, and that makes the pain go away. Something to really just
Mm-hmm.
tie it all together, and wrap it up nicely. But I really like the pieces that are being set out here, and that was just like my quick, just firing some connections together, and I'm sure that the author can do something even better than that by actually like focusing on it, rather than me just doing a quick once over. But yeah, thanks so much for joining us, Educated Fierce. And I think this is a great start to your Do the Right Thing stories.
We would like to give a big old do the right thing to everyone who did submit a story this week. So thank you very much to Mattsaidwords.
Thank you to No Goodbye.
Thank you, Walker by Faith.
And thank you, Educated Fierce 1978. I
Mm-hmm.
guess Educated Fierce 1 through 1977 were taken.
Yeah, I guess so. Uh,
It's dumb.
yeah.
Anyway.
And we would also like to say thank you to everyone who did leave comments. Leaving comments not only under your own story, but under someone else's story can condense all of your own ideas on your own story for others to read, but it also provides someone else with crucial feedback that can only improve them and yourself as writers. So,
Mm-hmm.
thank you very much to Mattsaidwords, Walker by Faith, Glittering Coast, and No Goodbye. Thank you so much for leaving comments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw some wonderful little back and forths in those comments, and that's always really nice to see.
Mm-hmm. If you want to be like all of these wonderful writers and submit your story to Do the Right Thing, you can do that by going to Reddit at /r/ Do the Right Thing. All you have to do is sit down for 30 minutes and write a complete short story using 3 or 4 randomly generated words.
That's right. If you want to see the words as soon as they come out, the best place to do that would be to follow us on Twitter at RightThingCast just at RightThingCast. If you want to send us an email and let us know what's up, or if you want to send us your Transformers fanfic or a request for ASMR, or send us a microphone, just random examples, just off the top of my head, you can send us an email at rightthingcast@gmail.com.
Exactly. And also, if you want to support us and everything else happening in Doof Media, You can do that by going to the Doof Media Patreon. All you have to do is donate $10 or more per month to get access to exclusive bonus content, and including the latest episode of Doof Over and any of the other bonus contents that we will be coming out with in the future.
We should probably do that.
Yes. I mean, hey, if we both watch this new Matrix movie, maybe we'll have one.
Sure. It'll probably be. I think they'll also be doing it for the Doof cast, so it'd be cool to have a double up Doof Over that way. We could cover the Animatrix again.
We could, yeah.
I say again. I don't know actually Doofcast ever covered Animatrix. I hope they did. It's quite good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's old.
Oh yeah, which I think is kind of part of the draw, though.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I ever finished it though. I think I watched most of them.
I mean, because it is
anyway,
an anthology, right?
Yes, yeah. Yes. I mean, honestly, I think it's a much better anthology of animated shorts than fucking
Love, Death, and Robots.
Yeah, Love, Death, and Robots. I actually would strongly say that.
Yeah,
with not every single episode's much better, but a good number of them are.
Yeah, I mean some of those in like Love, Death, and the Robots were all right, but it did suck how like there were 10 episodes per season, but there were only 3 good ones per season.
Yeah, and honestly, that might also be a stretch, but that's anyway. This is not the Dis Love, Death, and Robots podcast. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of wonderful things going on at Doof Media. Speaking of the Doofcast, they are just wrapping up their Deconstructing Cameron series, which I thought was really fascinating. I can't remember if I think they did finish it with Deconstructing Cameron Avatar and talking about that movie and how I think their conclusion was that it's actually surprisingly good and that most people do like it. Not that it's perfect in any way, but it is quite good. And the animation still pretty much holds up even now, which is pretty impressive. So if you want to see all of the discussion around David Cameron's movies, including Titanic and True Lies and Avatar and Aliens and Terminator, so just a long list of very good movies, go check it out on the Doofcast.
Yes. Well, all right. I think it's high time to roll into next week's words, don't you think?
I do think. Jarvis, thank you.
So, the 4 words for next week that will be going along with your wonderful stories are occupy, layer, tune, and static.
So, occupy as in to like occupy Wall Street,
yes.
Which is to be inside of a space, and sometimes it is to be inside of a space when something else is not wanting you there, but it can just be just being there. You can occupy a room. You can occupy it's sounding Wall Street. It's sounding so weird the more I say that word. Occupy. I don't know. Occupy. That feels like a Pokemon.
Mm-hmm. Occupy. The space type Pokemon.
The space type Pokemon. Anyway, the pastry Pokemon. The eyes and anyway, this is not funny. I'm gonna move on. What's the next one's layer? Is what you said?
The next one is layer.
Is that layer as in layer in a cake or layer as in layer of the beast?
Layer as in cake.
Okay. So that is one. I guess. God, sometimes not using words is so difficult. One level with another level on top of it. So multiple levels or strata. That basically they'll usually like form lines. So onions have a lot of layers that you peel away. There can be a lot of layers in the of geology of different kinds of rocks. You have different layers of skin. Basically everything has multiple layers of whatever makes it up. And obviously you can use that in ways of less like peeling back those layers or having to move through spaces of layers of different layers of like buildings and such. What are some other uses that you would think of, Jarvis?
Layer cake. Layer. Let me see. There were layers to cyberspace.
Mm-hmm.
Just anything with multiple tiers of
Mm-hmm.
progression.
I feel like you could make a character say, "I'll catch you later," except they have an accent, so they say layer.
Leia, yeah, Leia.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Perfect. Yeah, someone needs to write a Transformer story with that. That's how they use the word. The next word.
The next word is tune. Tune.
So like music. So to carry a tune, which is I guess it's closer to the connotation of a melody, right?
Yeah.
Or yeah,
Also, you
in
can tune
particular.
like a
Mm-hmm.
radio.
Yeah, or a guitar. Otherwise, just changing the sound to be what you want it to be. Um, and those are the ones I can think of. And the last word,
Static.
static,
Yeah,
like
like
static
static
shock,
shock. Yes.
like static shock. So that is the sort of random electrical impulses, I guess. I don't know exactly what the proper term for static is.
Yeah.
But you know what I want to hear more talk of? The feeling of putting your hand in front of a staticky TV. That is so interesting.
Ooh, that like
What
little
a
crinkle that you get.
yeah, on your hand. It's like a little force field in front of it. I used to
Mm,
try to like push it around. I feel like you sometimes could. Like you could push the static away for a second before it like regenerated, which is kind of interesting.
yeah.
Um, yeah, but yeah, there's static electricity, sort of the random, random electrical energy and stuff. And static on TV is that white noise that I think is really really cool.
Definitely, definitely. So tell me, what story are you going to be bringing us next week?
So I am not. I'll save this. You can do the Static Shock fanfic. Let me just real quick write these down. Static layer, occupy, and what was it? Last one?
Static layer, occupied tune.
Tune. So I'm going to write about one day all electronics just get turned to static, which is very scary, particularly when you have like phones and stuff that never get turned to static. So everyone's really scared, and so everyone went to the government place and was like, "Hey, what's up?" And the government wouldn't listen, so they started singing a tune to get the government to listen. And they were singing that song, which actually had a lot of layers of meaning, which I thought was really really cool. And the government still wouldn't listen, and so they decided to occupy the government buildings. Except when they went in there, all of the politicians' faces were static, like
Wow.
they were all like, shh, you know. Um, and then everyone was like, "We don't have a government," and then they descended to anarchy. But it was actually kind of nice.
Yeah, and I guess it was like easier since there was no government. They were just static people.
Yeah, they were just static people. Anyone that tried to be part of the government just got turned into static.
Whoa, by
Mm-hmm.
who? Okay, okay. Well, my story next week is actually going to be about occupying Wall Street, but it is in the it's in the Milestone universe. So the one spearheading it is, of course, my boy Static Shock.
Mm-hmm.
And basically how he goes about is that he starts off on his like hoverboard, spouting a whole bunch of like anti-capitalist propaganda, and he also uses his like static powers to tune every radio to his voice, so that everyone in the whole area can hear him. So after about doing this for about 20 minutes, he then mobilizes all of his units and they start marching down Wall Street streets.
Mm-hmm.
And there are different levels of them. There are the people that he knew before, people that sort of planned it with him, and then a couple of layers back, it is the common folk. But
Mm-hmm.
this protest was pretty good, and it lasted for about three weeks until until finally there was no more stock market. We just said no more stocks.
This was all silly. No more stocks. I'm
No
done
more
with it.
stocks. Yes, this is fake money. No more stocks.
Fake money. Yeah, I think of our stories could coexist.
Yeah,
I think they
honestly, yeah,
both happen. I think
yeah.
we should for next week we should both write a story together,
Oh,
intertwining. I think that would be
right
I
thing.
think it'd be cool.
Oh, yeah. It would be pretty cool. Pretty cool too. to do.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and all the other holidays also.
Yes, have a great time.
Isn't it weird how there's only 5 days or 6 days between Christmas and New Year's? That's wrong. That's not okay. Why not?
Christmas should be earlier.
Of